So is Social Security going to run out of money? Every year, the Social Security trustees issue a report, and 2025's report is here. So let's go through it. The report is called Status of Social Security and Medicare Programs. It just came out as I record this. And it starts off with this summary that they call a message to the public. And I want to zoom in on what they call the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund, which is what you and I know as Social Security. And here's what it says. The Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund will be available to pay 100% of total scheduled benefits until 2033, unchanged from last year's report. And at that time, the fund's reserves will become depleted and continuing programs will be sufficient to pay 77% of total scheduled benefits. Okay, so what does this mean? What it means is earlier when Social Security first came out, there were quite a bit more people working, quite a few more people working for every person receiving Social Security. And unfortunately, that number has continued to drop. So there's fewer and fewer workers that are going to be paying for our Social Security when our time comes. So, and because of that, they had excess funds early, and that's what the trust fund is. And what the report is saying that the current taxes from the people that are working, once those surplus funds, once the trust fund has been depleted, which they say is in about, as I record this, 2033 is only 8 years away, which is insane. That's a very short period of time politically. And at that point, the existing taxes will be sufficient to fund 77% of the benefits. So those are the facts. I do want to share that the projected long-term finances of the Social Security Trust Fund worsened this year, they say primarily due to three reasons. And the first is, you might remember at the end of last year, at the end of 2024, there was the Social Security Fairness Act, which was passed into law on January 5th, 2025. And that got rid of the windfall elimination and government pension offset programs. Essentially, some people that were getting government pensions were using a different formula to determine how much their Social Security benefit would be. And previously, that formula was different than it was for people like myself that have never worked for the government. So that was something that was good for the recipients, but it costs money. So that's the primary reason that things have gotten worse over the last year. Second, the trustees extended the assumed period of recovery from historically low levels of fertility by 10 years. Many people have heard that, the US, we're not having enough kids, and it's getting to be an issue, and they're saying that's going to continue. And the third reason that kind of bothers me, but it is what it is. The third reason is the trustees lowered the assumed long-term share of gross domestic product that accrues to workers in the form of labor compensation. So as we get better, as we do more with less, as our productivity increases, as GDP goes up, goes from lower left to upper right, as that improves, what the Social Security trustees are saying is that we as the workers are going to get a smaller share of that in the future than what we have in the past. And so that was another thing that they changed. And when you think about artificial intelligence, you know, I think we're all going to be able to get more done with less, just like when we got computers. That was a difficult transition for my parents. Once they got through that transition, though, they were able to get more done with less. My entire professional career, I've had access to a computer, although not always my own. There used to be a computer room when I first started working, and you have to budget time in there. And then the internet came along, and it took us to the next level from a productivity standpoint. And I think artificial intelligence is going to do that as well. But what the trustees are saying is they're assuming that less of those productivity gains are going to go to workers. Okay. I'm not happy about that, but they have knowledge. They have a lot of knowledge. In fact, that's what I want to share next is who are these trustees? Because I think it's important. The trustees are the Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, who is the managing trustee. It's the Secretary of Labor, who is Lori Chavez de Remer. It is the Secretary of Health and Human Services, which is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and then it's the Commissioner of Social Security, who's Frank Bisignano. I'm sorry, I know I butchered a couple of those names. Okay, the next thing I want to share is who pays income tax on Social Security? Because the report talks about this. And I think one of the reasons the report talks about it is there was a big push when President Trump was running for reelection about eliminating the taxes on Social Security. The Social Security Administration would say that 90% of people no longer, with the increased senior deduction, effectively no longer pay taxes because maybe we pay taxes, but then we get the deduction. But they did put in this year's report who pays income tax. And then importantly, stick around because I'm going to talk about what do we do given the uncertainty of Social Security. And that's super important. Okay, who pays income tax on Social Security benefits? Social Security beneficiaries with incomes above $25,000 for individuals or $32,000 for married couples filing jointly pay income tax on up to 50% of their benefits, with the revenues going to the trust funds. And those with incomes above $34,000 or $44,000 for married couples filing jointly pay income tax on up to 85% of their benefits, with the revenues from taxation in excess to the first 50%. That goes to the health insurance trust fund, which I believe is Medicare. Okay, so what do we do? The gorilla in the room is, so how do we plan? You know, it's a crazy system when you think a few months ago, we didn't know what income tax rates were gonna be at the first of the year. We now do because of the one big beautiful, act, no longer a bill. And I should say this is not a political channel. I just wanna share what the facts are. And so the facts are we have to plan for uncertainty. And there's a lot of uncertainty. None of us know how long we're going to live. None of us know how long we're going to stay healthy. None of us know what inflation is going to be this year or next year. So there's already a lot of uncertainty. But, something like Social Security, which provides a bedrock for over half of all American retirees, rely on Social Security for half or more of all of their monthly expenses. So I wish we had more clarity on the future of Social Security and uh, what we can anticipate with certainty our benefits are going to be, but we don't have that. So what do we do? What we do is we do scenario planning with our software, with our retirement plans. We do what if analysis. We do worst case scenarios. Maybe you assume you get 75% of Social Security or 50%. What is it? And I'd encourage you to work with a fiduciary financial advisor to do that. I know many of you are not. The fiduciary financial advisor, in my estimate, is the gold standard. But if you're going to do it yourself, do me a favor. Do not use Excel or Google Sheets. Use software designed to help you do that. The software I like is called Bolden. You can find Bolden at this QR code here. This video is not sponsored by Bolden, but I am an affiliate, so you'll be supporting the channel. And Bolden is really good at these scenario plans. So if you like this video, the YouTube algorithm says you'll like this video of mine next. I'll see you in there. Bye-bye.